Hi amazing YouTubers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Priska. In today's video we'll be talking about how to heal from toxic relationships. I have shared with you before about being in an abusive relationship and also being caught up in a situationship. And I was really caught up in always walking like from one toxic relationship to another toxic relationship. And at the time I was so unaware, but when I look at it now and just really the past few years, I was able to like dig deep into understanding like I was like in a cycle of always walking into like toxic relationships. And I learned that toxic relationships just really reflect what's going on internally inside of you. It's always important to have an introspection of what's going on inside of you, especially when you're just really caught up in bad relationships. You need to like internally find out what's going on because for me, I learned that I had internal and deep hurt, rejection, and just really feeling that I remember growing up, I just felt like I was born a mistake, and I always felt like I disliked myself for the reasons that I just didn't ever feel that I was good enough. So I always used relationships to be a band-aid on the things that made me feel hurt, and hoping that if I got into a relationship, then I would find the person who loves me, and that I would use the relationship to kind of like console me when I had deeper issues. And I didn't really know that, but eventually I started to really understand that. But one of the things that helped me move forward past toxic relationships and just really healing and being able to get to a place of confidence is one thing that stood out for me is being separated from that person, being separated from the people that you always find yourself getting into toxic relationships with. And that stood out for me because my separation process for me was when I moved to a different town. And when I got in a different town and found a job in a different town, my life just eventually changed. And adjusting in that place was so hard because I didn't have many friends, and it was just a different and a whole new experience of living away from family, living away from the things that I had known. And so I remember one time really thinking about how drastic things had changed, that even my relationships also began to change. And I just started to really work on myself. And I remember really thinking how being in a new place was good for me, but yet was also so hard because I found myself like doing away with so many people that I just never thought that I could be so done with. But that's what happened. And I remember just really thinking about the changes that had taken place. And God speaks to you in thoughts, and He just dropped this in my head that had I not been in a new place, I still would have been stuck to the same people, doing the same things, and being in toxic relationships. And I just needed a separation process to get me away from all that. And when I had clarity about that, I really understood why. It's because I was the kind of a girl who always got back so easily with somebody, even when I knew that that relationship was abusive and it was hurting and it was bad and it was toxic. But my mind was just too clouded that I could not see things clearly. So if someone would be like, oh, sorry, and was not really sorry, I would easily get back to them. Even in the situationship, it was like that. I was always constantly going back to that person. Sometimes I would also initiate the communication and then would be like right back at it again. And so I understood that that was necessary for me to just get away from those people, to get away. And even if it meant being in a different location, I was able to just say, you know what, God, I thank you for that, because that process just prevented me from always seeing the same people, hanging out in the same places, and then finding the same people, and then being back to square one when that's not where I really wanted to be. The most important thing about healing from a toxic relationship is that you need to separate yourself from that person. I know that in your mind, you definitely tell yourself, like, how can I not live without that person? Because that's what you've told yourself. Like, they're so good that you can't live without them, but you can live without them. And that's the whole point of separating, is you need to learn how to stop living with that person and be able to start your life on your own all over again, even when it hurts. And it means that you always have to be aware of the things that you're doing that always keep you going back to that person. Like, what is it that you constantly do that always drives you back to, like, once, two steps back, and back into that relationship? And so you have to be aware so that you understand what it means to separate from that thing that keeps you stuck and glued to that person. Are you always like constantly chatting even when you've broken up? Some people be like, no, we're just still friends. And because of that companionship that is still going on, that will create like a door for you to get back together. So you need to be very intentional about what it means to separate. And that means even texting. It could mean just really not being in the same places, even if you like hanging out in the same places, but you do know that when you be there, that other person will definitely be around. And so you have to be aware of all that. Could it be that maybe your friends that you share in common bring you back in the same place with that person? And so you might need a separation process from that. It doesn't mean that you hate the friends that you have in common, but you need to kind of like breathe and have time for yourself so that you process exactly what is it that's going on. Process what it is that you don't want to exist in your life. Process the process your feelings and really understand, like, what is your goal in mind, so that you stick to that. Your emotions will get in the way. And I remember being in my separation process, I had to learn to understand that I needed to acknowledge how I felt. There are moments that you think you're going to miss that person because you definitely had good times, but I learned how to acknowledge my feeling and say, yeah, I really like that person. But I had so much clarity that even when I still felt like I liked that person, I still thought that I missed them, I had so much clarity in just being able to see that they were not good for me, even if I still had felt a certain way about them. And then when I started to really process and understand, like, if I said that I liked that person, was it a genuine feeling, or where was this feeling that I was thinking I was in love coming from? And that's where I was able to process that I wasn't in love, but I was acting out of insecurity, and I was using the relationship to band-aid me. And because they stayed and kind of felt like we could relate and hang out, I assumed that that was love, but it was not. And I could also see the toxicity also from their end. And so I also needed to understand me better as to why I was allowing those situations to happen to me. So the separation process just really helped me to have clarity. And you need space to have clarity of mind. You need to have a perception that is so truthful. And you can't get that when your emotions are in the way. And even if you feel that you, like, feel this person and still love them, I was able to just separate that and be able to tell myself, like, what is right and what is wrong. Then what is really love if this is not good enough for me? So the separation process was hard because I'm going to be honest with you. I still wanted to date, but not the same people. But I also found myself like being attracted to the same kind of character of a person. who would not treat me well and who did not respect me. So even in that separation process, I was understanding that God was separate wanted me to separate and part ways with of a certain mentality that I had about love. I didn't have a correct and a truthful perception of what love is. So I was still attracted to the same kind of character. And so I had to like dig a little bit deeper into understanding why that was. And so by that, I perceived like, no, I don't think this is the right time for me to be in a relationship, but to really focus on me and my relationship with God. And the separation, when you are separated in that, you know that this is from God, you really have to obey his call, because he calls you also into separation for him. And it's not just about you. And I remember feeling like, you know what, I feel good, I feel like I can bounce back, I'm ready to date. But I had to understand that it wasn't just about me, but God was calling me into a relationship deeply with him so that I can know him better. And the more that I invested my time in my relationship with God and started really knowing what he wants out of me, and he started to also give me this understanding of what kind of love he wants me to experience, even if it came through relationships. And I had to learn and understand that he wanted me whole, healthy, not damaged, and not hurt by people. And the more I invested my time in my relationship with God, I started to protect that. I started to protect everything that I had worked through and be able to just protect the peace that I felt that I had, the confidence that I started to build, and just the joy that I had and the peace that I enjoyed in that moment, that I was able to just be like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this kind of a guy. I don't want to date that person. I don't want this. I just don't want a relationship that's going to interfere in my relationship with God, that when I feel like I am in the wrong place, I am just in the wrong place. And so that's what helped me heal from toxic relationships, is so much separation from mentality, breaking patterns and behaviors that I had, but even more so drawing closer to God, so that I could have like a proper definition, reflection, and perception of what love is. And even and I found so much healing also in God's word. I found so much healing in being alone, because I was just never the girl who also wanted to be alone. Like, I was a girl who just loved to date. Like, I am a sucker for love. I have a sucker for love. I just love, the romantic setup. I still like, I'm a sucker for love. But I had to understand that loving someone is not a weakness. And because I would question that, like, does it mean like loving someone is like, does that make you like weak? Does that make you like the girl everybody's gonna attack and hurt? But loving someone and just being able to have the ability to love is not a weakness. God just wants you to love the right person, and it's okay to love. And it's okay to know that you want to give love. You just have to be willing to, you just need, he just wants you to be in a place where you love the right person. And that's what I understood in my separation process. And it was long. I was lonely, but at some point in the beginning I was lonely, but it got to a place where I was so confident that I stopped even thinking like, oh, I'm single and I'm like miserable. It became more like, I am single, I am enjoying this, I am thriving, I'm learning to be confident. There was so much that I was learning. I was learning about finances, how to just really be an independent woman. And I started to just really focus on things that started to help me grow. And I was like enjoying that process. So for most people, I really love to encourage you, like, when you are from a broken relationship and walking into the next, like, in without you healing, without you just being separated, having a separation process from that person that you were with and breaking part from all the things that you experience in that relationship, you're going to take all that hurt and then keep going on, and you will take it on to the next person and the next person, and it becomes a toxic cycle. So the separation process is just really you allowing yourself to move in a relationship with God. It is not boring. It is not um it's not it may not look easy, it may not even feel easy, but it is just one of the best things that I've ever done for myself. And when I look back, even till today, I'm married, but I look back at that moment and I think of how worth it it was to spend time like that with God. It was just so worth it to have the entire day spend it with him every morning, in the evening, when I would be like on break, during my lunch break. I would just be glued to watching something, a sermon, or read something that would just personally empower me, build my faith. There was never, I feel like there wasn't a time, I mean, now that I'm married and have kids, and I have so much going on. It is so different when you're single. And that's why for most people, like, that is the best time that you need to work on you. Instead of thinking like, when is this person coming in? When am I going to be able to date the next person? Like, you have no idea how much your time is valuable, that if you spend it with God, you would have so much, because at that time you are able to concentrate on you and you have nothing else going on. And that doesn't mean that you're living a boring life. It means that you have so much time to learn. So thank you so much for sticking in with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. For now, take care. Bye.